The Grand Meridian Hotel stood like a crystal palace against the evening sky, its windows glowing with golden light that spilled onto the streets below. Inside, the marble floors reflected chandeliers that hung like frozen waterfalls, each crystal catching light and scattering it across walls adorned with paintings worth more than most people earned in a lifetime. Lily Morgan pushed her cleaning cart through the service corridor, her shoulders aching from the weight of another endless shift. Her uniform hung loose on her thin frame, the fabric worn soft from countless washings. She had tied her auburn hair back in a simple bun, revealing a face that might have been beautiful if not for the exhaustion etched around her eyes. At 28, she looked older, the kind of weariness that came not from years but from burdens too heavy to carry alone. The wheels of her cart squeaked as she moved, a sound she had grown so accustomed to that she barely noticed it anymore. Just 3 years ago, Lily had stood in front of classrooms filled with eager students, teaching them about Renaissance art and the power of creative expression. She had loved watching their faces light up when they understood how Michelangelo had carved life from stone, or how Van Gogh had painted emotion itself. Her small apartment had been filled with art supplies, student projects pinned to every wall, and the kind of joy that came from knowing you were making a difference. Then her brother made a terrible mistake. He had been accused of embezzling funds from the private school where they both worked. The evidence was circumstantial, but the damage was absolute. Parents pulled their children from classes. The school board held emergency meetings. Lily's name appeared in newspaper articles alongside her brother's, guilt assigned by association rather than proof. She resigned before they could fire her. Watching her dreams dissolve like watercolors in rain, her brother eventually proved his innocence, but by then it was too late. No school would hire her. The whispers followed her everywhere. She took the first job she could find, scrubbing toilets and changing sheets at the Grand Meridian, invisible to the wealthy guests who passed her in hallways without seeing her at all. The paycheck barely covered rent and food, but it kept her going. More importantly, it paid for her grandmother's medication. Grace Morgan was the only family Lily had left. At 76, Grace had raised Lily after her parents died in a car accident when she was 8 years old. Grace had worked 3 jobs to put Lily through college, never complaining, always smiling, telling Lily that education was the one thing no one could ever take away. Now Grace was dying, her heart failing a little more each day, and the medication that kept her comfortable costs more than Lily made in a month. Tonight, the Grand Meridian hosted the Startling Foundation Gala, one of the biggest charity events of the year. The ballroom buzzed with the city's elite, women in gowns that cost more than a car, men in tuxedos discussing stock portfolios between sips of champagne. Lily kept to the edges, collecting empty glasses and wiping down surfaces, trying not to think about how one bottle of the wine being served could pay for a month of her grandmother's prescriptions. Through the doorway, she caught glimpses of the crowd. At the center of it all stood Victor Sterling. Everyone knew his story. At 36, he had built a technology empire from nothing, starting in a garage and turning it into one of the most valuable companies in the world. His software powered everything from hospitals to space stations. Forbes called him a genius. Time magazine named him Person of the Year. But what people talked about most was his isolation. 5 years ago, Victor's wife had died in a tragic accident. Since then, he had become a ghost in his own life, appearing at events alone, rebuffing every attempt by society's most eligible women to capture his attention. His dark hair had threads of silver at the temples now, and his blue eyes held a distance that kept everyone at arm's length. He was worth billions, but he seemed to carry a loneliness that money could not cure. Lily finished clearing a tray of glasses and turned to head back to the service area. As she moved, her foot caught on the edge of a carpet. She stumbled, catching herself before falling, but one glass slipped from the tray. It hit the marble floor with a sharp crack, shattering into glittering pieces that scattered across the pristine surface. The sound cut through the music and conversation like a gunshot. Heads turned. 100 pairs of eyes landed on her. Lily felt her face burn with shame as she dropped to her knees, frantically gathering the broken pieces, wishing the floor would open and swallow her whole. A woman in diamonds laughed behind a jeweled hand. A man in a tuxedo shook his head in disgust. Then she heard footsteps approaching. Expensive shoes, moving with purpose. Lily looked up and found herself staring into the face of Victor Startling. He stood directly in front of her, his expression unreadable. For a moment, neither of them moved. The entire ballroom seemed to hold its breath. Victor extended his hand toward Lily. She thought he was going to help her up. But instead his arm moved past her, his finger pointing directly at her face. His voice carried across the silent room with absolute clarity. "Hey, bring her to me." The words landed like stones in still water, sending ripples of shock through the crowd. Confused murmurs rose immediately. Lily felt her heart stop, her mind unable to process what was happening. Men in suits materialized beside her, their hands firm but not rough as they helped her to her feet. The broken glass forgotten, she was guided forward through the parting crowd. Every face turned toward her with expressions ranging from confusion to contempt to morbid curiosity. Her legs felt like water as she was led to where. Victor stood waiting. The distance from where she had knelt to where he stood felt like walking through fire. Patricia Hawthorne, a socialite, who had been trying to capture Victor's attention for months, stood nearby, her perfect features twisted with shock and rage. James Chen, Victor's business partner, looked equally stunned. His phone already in his hand, Lily reached Victor and stopped. Her breath coming in short gasps, her hands trembling at her sides. She forced herself to meet his eyes, expecting mockery or cruelty. Instead, she found something else entirely. Something that looked almost like recognition, as if he saw not a clumsy cleaner, but a person. Someone real in a room full of pretenders. The room waited. The music had stopped. Even the waiters had frozen in place. Victor's gaze never left her face, and in that moment Lily realized that whatever happened next would change everything. Her invisibility had just shattered along with that glass, and there was no going back. The private room Victor Startling led Lily to felt like stepping into another world. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the glittering city below, where ordinary people lived ordinary lives. The furniture was elegant but understated, leather sofas the color of dark chocolate, a glass table that reflected the soft glow of recessed lighting. Lily stood near the door, her cleaning uniform a stark contrast to the luxury surrounding her. Her heart still hammering from the walk through the ballroom, Victor closed the door, muting the chaos they had left behind. He moved to a cabinet and poured water into 2 crystal glasses, then crossed the room and offered one to her. Lily took it with shaking hands, too nervous to drink. He settled into a chair across from her. His posture relaxed in a way that made her tension feel even more pronounced. "Please sit," he said, his voice gentler than she expected. Lily perched on the edge of the sofa, her back straight, ready to flee at any moment. Victor studied her for a long moment, his blue eyes thoughtful. Outside, sirens wailed faintly, a reminder of the real world beyond these walls. "My name is Victor Startling," he began, though she already knew. "And I apologize for what just happened out there. I needed to get you alone, and subtlety was not an option given the circumstances." Lily found her voice, though it came out smaller than she intended. "Why? What do you want from me?" Victor leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "I want to offer you an arrangement, one that could benefit us both." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "The people out there have been pressuring me for years to remarry. Every event becomes an auction where families try to position their daughters, their nieces, their business partners. They see me as an acquisition, not a person." Lily listened, confused about where this was going. Victor continued, his tone growing more intense. "Tonight, when I saw you, I saw something different. You were not performing. You were not calculating. You were real. And I realized you could help me." "Help you how?" Lily asked, her grip tightening on the glass. Victor met her eyes directly. "I want you to pretend to be in a relationship with me. Attend events by my side. Let the world think we are together. In return, I will pay you a monthly salary of $50,000. Your grandmother will receive the best medical care available in a private facility with specialists. I will cover all costs. You will have a place to live, a car, everything you need. The numbers hit Lily like a physical blow. $50,000 a month was more than she made in a year. Her grandmother could receive treatment that might actually help, not just delay the inevitable. She could stop worrying about rent, about food, about the constant crushing weight of bills she could not pay. But the price was herself. "You want me to lie?" she said quietly. "To everyone." Victor shook his head. "I want you to play a role. There is a difference. You would not have to pretend emotions you do not feel in private, only in public. Only when necessary." Lily stood abruptly, pacing to the window. Below, cars moved like fireflies through streets, people heading home to their lives. "Why me? You could have anyone. Models, actresses, women who actually belong in your world." "That is exactly why not them," Victor replied, standing as well. "They would want more than an arrangement. They would see an opportunity and try to turn fiction into reality. But you need something concrete. Survival. That makes you honest. That makes you someone I can trust." His words stung because they were true. Lily pressed her forehead against the cool glass, thinking of her grandmother's face. Pale against white pillows, her breath coming in labored gasps. She thought of the eviction notice on her door. The final warning from the pharmacy, the way she rationed her own meals so Grace could eat. "How long?" she asked without turning around. 6 months, Victor said. "Maybe a year. Long enough for the pressure to ease. Long enough for them to lose interest and find someone else to focus on. Then we part ways quietly. You walk away with enough money to start over, however you choose." Lily turned to face him. "And if people find out the truth—" Victor's expression hardened. "They will not. I have resources to ensure our story is believable. Backgrounds can be adjusted. Histories can be refined. To the world, you will become someone who fits into my life seamlessly." The idea of erasing herself, of becoming someone else entirely, made Lily's stomach turn. But the alternative was watching her grandmother die slowly while Lily scrubbed toilets and pretended. She did not want to scream. She thought of the art classes she would never teach again, the dreams she had already buried. What was one more sacrifice? "I need to think about it," Lily said finally. Victor nodded, reaching into his jacket and pulling out a card. "My private number. Call me by tomorrow night." "But Lily, I meant what I said. Time is not something you have in abundance." The truth of his words settled over her like a cold blanket. He was right. Her grandmother's doctor had given them months, maybe weeks. Every day without proper treatment brought the end closer. Victor opened the door, and the sounds of the gala rushed back in, laughter and music and the clinking of glasses. "One more thing," he said as she moved to leave. "Whatever you decide, tonight changes nothing about who you are. Remember that." Lily left without responding, slipping back into the service corridors where she belonged. But even as she changed out of her uniform and caught the bus home, she knew the decision was already made. Survival did not leave room for pride. The next evening, Lily stood outside the Grand Meridian again, but this time she entered through the front doors. She had called Victor that morning, her voice steady as she accepted his offer. Now, a woman named Catherine Webb waited for her in a boutique suite, her sharp eyes assessing Lily like a sculptor examining raw marble. "We have work to do," Catherine said briskly. She was Victor's personal consultant, hired to transform Lily from invisible cleaner to billionaire's companion. Over the next hours, Lily was measured, photographed, and questioned about everything from her favorite colors to her shoe size. Catherine took notes constantly, her pen scratching across paper as she planned the metamorphosis. The following days blurred together. Lily was taken to salons where her hair was cut and colored, bringing out auburn highlights she had not known existed. Makeup artists taught her techniques to enhance her features without looking painted. Personal trainers designed gentle routines to improve her posture and confidence. A voice coach helped her modulate her tone, speaking with clarity rather than the apologetic softness she had developed. But the most challenging part was the wardrobe. Catherine led her through boutiques where a single dress cost more than Lily's monthly rent. Silks and satins, cashmere and lace, shoes with heels so high, Lily had to learn to walk all over again. Each outfit was carefully selected to project elegance and understated wealth. Lily stood before mirrors and barely recognized the woman staring back. Through it all, Victor remained distant but present. He would appear during fittings, offering opinions with surprising insight. He noticed when a color washed her out or when a cut did not flatter her frame. His attention to detail was meticulous, but never cruel. Sometimes Lily caught him watching her with an expression she could not read, something between curiosity and something deeper. A week after accepting his offer, Lily moved into a penthouse apartment Victor owned but never used. The space was enormous, with windows that framed the city like a painting. Her grandmother was transferred to Riverside Medical Center, the best cardiac facility in the state. When Lily visited Grace that evening, her grandmother was sitting up in bed, color returning to her cheeks, the oxygen mask replaced with a simple nasal cannula. "How did you manage this?" Grace asked, tears streaming down her weathered face. Lily had prepared a story about a grant, about assistance programs. The lies came easier than she expected. Grace held her hand, too grateful to question. "You are a miracle, my sweet girl." Lily smiled and squeezed back. Ignoring the weight settling in her chest, the night of their first official public appearance arrived too quickly. Victor had chosen a charity gala at the Eastwood Gallery, an art museum that once upon a time Lily had loved visiting. She stood in her new apartment, wearing a midnight blue gown that hugged her curves before flowing to the floor. Diamond earrings, on loan from a jeweler Victor knew, caught the light. Catherine had spent hours on her makeup and hair, creating an image of effortless sophistication. When Victor arrived to collect her, he stopped in the doorway. For the first time since they met, his composed expression cracked slightly. "You look beautiful," he said simply. Lily felt heat rise to her cheeks. "Thank you." The drive to the gallery was quiet, both of them lost in their own thoughts. When they arrived, cameras flashed like lightning. Victor stepped out first, then offered his hand to help Lily from the car. She took it, feeling the strength in his grip, and emerged into a storm of light and noise. Reporters shouted questions. Who was she? Where had she come from? How long had they been together? Victor ignored them all, his hand settling on the small of Lily's back as he guided her up the red carpet. Inside, the gallery was transformed into a wonderland of soft lighting and classical music. Sculptures stood on pedestals like silent sentries, and paintings lined walls, their colors vibrant even in the dim glow. Patricia Hawthorne appeared within minutes, her smile sharp as broken glass. "Victor, darling, you must introduce us to your mysterious companion." Her eyes traveled over Lily with barely concealed contempt. Victor's hand tightened slightly on Lily's waist. "Patricia, this is Lily Morgan." Lily, Patricia Hawthorne. Lily extended her hand, remembering Catherine's coaching. Firm grip, steady eye contact, pleasant smile. "Lovely to meet you." Patricia's handshake was brief and cold. Morgan. That name sounds familiar. "Have we met before?" The question was innocent on the surface, but Lily heard the threat beneath. Patricia was already digging, already searching for ammunition. Before Lily could respond, Victor smoothly steered them away. "Excuse us, Patricia. We are expected elsewhere." As they moved through the crowd, Lily felt the weight of 100 stares. Whispers followed in their wake like smoke. She recognized some faces from the Grand Meridian, guests she had served, people who had never looked at her twice. Now they studied her with suspicion and envy, trying to understand who she was and why Victor Sterling had chosen her. James Chen approached, his expression a mixture of concern and curiosity. "Victor, a word?" Victor nodded, then turned to Lily. "Will you be all right for a moment?" Lily nodded, though her confidence was a carefully constructed facade. Victor and James moved to a quieter corner, their heads bent in serious conversation. Lily stood alone, suddenly very aware of how fragile her new identity felt. "You clean up well?" The voice came from behind her. Lily turned to find a man she did not recognize, his smile predatory. "I am sorry?" He moved closer, his breath carrying the scent of expensive whiskey. "I said you clean up well?" "For a maid." Lily's blood turned to ice. He knew. Somehow he knew. The man's smile widened at her reaction. "Derek Foster. I make it my business to know things. And I know exactly who you really are, Miss Morgan." Before Lily could respond, Victor returned, his presence like a wall between her and danger. "Foster, I see you are bothering my guest." Derek raised his hands in mock innocence. "Just making conversation. Your girlfriend and I were getting acquainted." His emphasis on girlfriend dripped with sarcasm. Victor's expression remained neutral, but Lily felt the tension radiating from him. "I think you have somewhere else to be." Derek laughed, but he backed away, disappearing into the crowd. Victor turned to Lily, his eyes searching her face. "What did he say to you?" Lily's hands trembled slightly as she smoothed her dress. "He knows. He knows who I really am." Victor's jaw tightened. "Foster is a rival, nothing more. He thrives on causing trouble. Ignore him." But as the evening continued, Lily could not shake the feeling that her carefully constructed new life was already beginning to crack. Across the room, she caught Derek watching her, his expression promising that this was far from over. And Patricia stood with a group of women, all of them staring at Lily like vultures circling wounded prey. Victor led her onto a balcony, away from the crowds. The night air was cool, carrying the scent of roses from the garden below. "You did well tonight," he said quietly. Lily leaned against the railing, exhaustion suddenly overwhelming her. "Did I? Because it feels like I am drowning." Victor stood beside her, close enough that their arms almost touched. "It will get easier. They will accept you, eventually." Lily turned to look at him. Really look at him. "And what about you, Victor? Will you accept me? Or am I just a tool to keep them away?" For a moment, something flickered across his face. Vulnerability, maybe. Regret. But it vanished as quickly as it appeared. "Right now, we are helping each other survive. Perhaps that is enough?" It was not an answer, but it was honest. Lily nodded, turning back to the city lights. Behind them, the gala continued, a world of pretense and performance. And somewhere in the middle of it all, two people stood on a balcony, their arrangement feeling less like salvation and more like a beautiful cage. The weeks following the gala passed in a whirlwind of carefully orchestrated appearances. Lily attended business dinners where she smiled politely while men discussed mergers and acquisitions. She sat beside Victor at theater premieres, her hand resting lightly on his arm as photographers captured their image. She learned to navigate conversations with politicians and philanthropists, offering thoughtful comments without revealing. How little she truly belonged in their world, Victor proved to be an unexpected teacher. During car rides between events, he would brief her on who they would meet, what topics to avoid, how to deflect uncomfortable questions with grace. He never made her feel stupid for not knowing things, never showed impatience when she stumbled over unfamiliar territory. Sometimes late at night, after particularly exhausting events, they would sit in his study and he would pour them each a glass of wine. While they dissected the evening's performances, those quiet moments began to feel dangerous. Lily found herself laughing at his dry observations about the absurdity of high society. She noticed the way his eyes crinkled slightly when he smiled, a rare occurrence that felt like watching the sun break through storm clouds. She caught herself wondering what he thought about when he stared out windows, lost in thoughts he never shared. The arrangement that was supposed to remain purely transactional was developing cracks, and something genuine threatened to seep through. But the outside world grew increasingly hostile. Patricia Hawthorne launched a subtle campaign of whispers and implications. At every event, she made sure to mention how suddenly Lily had appeared, how convenient the timing seemed, how Victor had always preferred women with established pedigrees. Other socialites joined the chorus, their polite smiles hiding razor-sharp judgments. Magazine articles began appearing with headlines that questioned Lily's background, her education, her worthiness to stand beside a man of Victor's stature. Through it all, Derek Foster watched and waited. Lily would catch glimpses of him at various functions, always with that knowing smirk. Always studying her like a predator, deciding when to strike. Victor dismissed him as a nuisance, but Lily felt the threat growing with each passing day. Derek was building toward something, gathering information, preparing for a moment that would cause maximum damage. 2 months into their arrangement, Lily sat in her grandmother's hospital room, holding Grace's hand as afternoon sunlight streamed through windows. The treatment was working miracles. Grace's color had improved dramatically, her breathing steady and strong. She talked about going home soon, about planting flowers in the spring, about all the things she would live to see. Lily listened and smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude even as guilt gnawed at her conscience. "Tell me about Victor," Grace said suddenly, her eyes bright with curiosity. "You never talk about how you met, how you fell in love." Lily had prepared stories for this question, had practiced the lies until they sounded natural. But sitting there, holding the hand of the woman who had sacrificed everything for her, the words stuck in her throat. "He makes me feel safe," she said finally, and realized with surprise that it was true. "That is all that matters then," Grace said softly. "Safety is the foundation of everything else." That evening, Victor invited Lily to his private residence for the first time. The house stood on a hillside overlooking the bay, modern and elegant with clean lines and walls of glass that brought the outside in. Victor led her through rooms filled with carefully curated art, each piece chosen with obvious thought and care. They settled in a living room where a fire crackled in a stone fireplace, the flames casting dancing shadows across the walls. "I wanted to talk to you away from prying eyes," Victor said, pouring them each a drink. "There is an event next week. The Startling Foundation's annual fundraiser. It is the biggest night of the year, and everyone who matters will be there." Lily nodded, already feeling the familiar tension building. "What makes this one different?" Victor sat beside her on the sofa, closer than he usually allowed himself. "This is where we make our relationship official. No more speculation, no more questions. I will announce our engagement." The words hit Lily like ice water. Engagement? That was not part of our arrangement. Victor's expression remained calm, but she saw the tension in his shoulders. The whispers are not dying down. They're getting worse. Patricia and her allies are spreading rumors, questioning your authenticity. An engagement silences them. It makes you untouchable. Lily stood abruptly, pacing to the windows. Outside, the bay stretched dark and infinite. Lights from distant boats bobbing like stars fallen to earth. This is too much. We agreed on appearances. I'm playing a role. Marriage is something else entirely. Victor rose and moved behind her, his reflection joining hers in the glass. It would not be real. Just another performance, another layer of the arrangement. After the appropriate amount of time, we would quietly separate. No one would question it. Lily turned to face him, searching his eyes for something she could not name. "Why are you doing this, really? There has to be more than just escaping pressure." For a long moment, Victor said nothing. The fire crackled. The clock on the mantel ticked steadily. Then he spoke, his voice lower than she had ever heard it. "Because I am tired of being alone. Not in reality, but in the way that matters. Everyone around me wants something. My money, my influence, my name. But when I look at you, I see someone who never asked for any of this. Someone who is here because life gave you no better choice. That honesty is the closest thing to real I have experienced in years." The vulnerability in his confession shook something loose in Lily's carefully constructed defenses. She realized that somewhere along the way, she had stopped seeing Victor as just a means to save her grandmother. She had started seeing the man beneath the billionaire, the loneliness he carried like a second skin, the way he watched the world from behind walls he had built to protect himself. "I need time to think," she whispered. Victor nodded, not pushing. "Of course. But Lily, know this. Whatever happens, I will not let them destroy you. You have my word." The promise settled between them, heavy with implications neither was ready to examine. The next morning everything shattered. Lily woke to her phone vibrating incessantly, messages flooding in from numbers she did not recognize. With trembling hands, she opened the first link someone had sent. The headline screamed across her screen. Sterling's secret, billionaire's girlfriend exposed as disgraced hotel maid. The article was brutal and thorough. It detailed her brother's scandal, her resignation from teaching, her time working at the Grand Meridian. There were photographs of her in her cleaning uniform, pushing a cart through the hotel corridors. Quotes from anonymous sources painted her as a gold digger who had manipulated her way into Victor's life. The story claimed she had deliberately broken that glass at the gala to engineer their meeting, that everything had been calculated from the beginning. Lily's hand shook so hard she dropped the phone. The walls of her beautiful apartment suddenly felt like a prison. Her carefully constructed new identity had been demolished with a few thousand words. She thought of her grandmother reading this in her hospital bed. She thought of Victor facing questions from his board, from investors, from everyone who would now see her as a liability rather than a companion. Within an hour, Catherine arrived at her door, her usual composure replaced with barely controlled panic. "We need to issue a statement. Victor is handling the business side, but we need to control the narrative about you." Lily laughed, the sound harsh and broken. "Control what narrative? Everything they wrote is true. I was a maid. My family was involved in scandal. I do not belong in Victor's world, and now everyone knows it." Catherine's expression softened slightly. "The truth is not the same as their version of truth. We can explain, provide context." But before they could strategize further, Lily's phone rang. It was Riverside Medical Center. Grace had seen the articles. The stress had triggered a cardiac episode. She was stable, but the doctors were concerned. Lily's world narrowed to a single point of clarity. None of this mattered. Not the headlines, not the scandal, not the arrangement. Her grandmother's life was the only thing that had ever truly mattered. She grabbed her coat and headed for the door. Catherine called after her, but Lily did not stop. She caught a taxi to the hospital, her mind numb, her heart racing. When she reached Grace's room, her grandmother lay pale against the pillows, monitors beeping steadily, her eyes closed. Lily sank into the chair beside the bed and took her grandmother's hand, tears finally breaking through. "I am so sorry," she whispered. "I should have told you the truth from the beginning." Grace's eyes opened slowly, focusing on Lily's face. Her voice came weak, but steady. "The truth about what, sweetheart?" Lily told her everything. The arrangement, the money, the pretense. She confessed to the lies she had built, the person she had pretended to be, the way she had sold herself to save Grace's life. She expected anger, disappointment, disgust. Instead, Grace squeezed her hand. "You did this for me?" Grace asked. Lily nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. Grace's eyes filled with tears. "Oh, my beautiful, foolish girl. I would rather die tomorrow than have you sacrifice your dignity for a few more months of my life." The words broke something fundamental in Lily. She laid her head on the bed beside her grandmother's hand and sobbed. All the fear and shame and exhaustion of the past months pouring out in waves. She did not hear the door open, did not realize someone else had entered until she felt a hand on her shoulder. She looked up to find Victor standing there, still in his suit from whatever meeting he had abandoned to come here. His eyes moved from Lily to Grace, understanding passing between them without words. "Mrs. Morgan," he said quietly, "I am Victor Sterling." Grace studied him with the sharp eyes of someone who had raised a child and knew how to see through pretense. "The man who bought my granddaughter." Victor flinched slightly, but did not look away. "The man who offered her a choice when she had none. And the man who has come to realize that what started as an arrangement has become something I never anticipated."
Oh.
Lily stood, confusion cutting through her grief. "What are you talking about?" Victor turned to her, and for the first time since they met, his carefully maintained composure cracked completely. "I am talking about the fact that Derek Foster released that story hoping to destroy us both. I am talking about the board meeting I just left, where they demanded I end our relationship to protect the company's image. And I am talking about the fact that I told them if they could not accept you, they could accept my resignation." The room went silent except for the steady beep of monitors. Lily stared at Victor, unable to process what she was hearing. "You did not do that. Your company is everything to you. Victor stepped closer, his eyes never leaving hers. I thought it was until I realized that these past months with you have been the first time I have felt alive since my wife died. Until I understood that what we have, this strange, imperfect arrangement, has become more real than anything else in my life. Grace made a small sound, drawing their attention. She was smiling despite the oxygen tube, despite the weakness. Well, that changes things, does not it? Lily's mind raced, her heart pounding. Victor, you cannot throw away everything you've built for this. For me, when the 6 months are up, I will leave. You will get your company back, your life back. Victor shook his head. I do not want my old life back. I want to build something new. With you. Not because of an arrangement or an agreement, but because I choose to. Because you choose to. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small box. Lily's breath caught as he opened it, revealing a ring. Not the massive diamond she expected, but something simpler and more beautiful. An emerald, the color of the dress she had worn that first night. Surrounded by tiny diamonds that caught the hospital's fluorescent light. This was supposed to be for show, Victor said quietly. A prop for the announcement next week. But I find I do not want to pretend anymore. Lily Morgan, will you marry me? Not for the cameras, not for the arrangement, but because in a room full of people who see what they want to see. You saw me, and I saw you. Lily looked at her grandmother, who nodded encouragingly, tears streaming down her weathered cheeks. She looked at Victor, this man who had started as a stranger offering escape and had somehow become someone who made her believe in possibilities she thought she had lost forever. She thought about the teacher she had been, the dream scandal had stolen. It's the person she had become in the shadows. And then she thought about the woman she had discovered over these past months. Someone stronger than she knew, braver than she believed, capable of navigating worlds she'd never imagined entering. Not because she was pretending to be someone else, but because she had always been that person underneath the shame and fear. Yes, she whispered, and then louder. Yes. Victor slipped the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly. He pulled her close, and she let herself melt into his embrace. Feeling the solid reality of him, the warmth, the unexpected rightness of it all. Behind them, Grace laughed softly, the sound weak but genuine. Now that is a love story worth telling, Grace said. Over the next days, the media firestorm continued, but something had shifted. Victor released a statement that was honest and unflinching. He confirmed Lily's background, explained how they met, made it clear that anyone who had a problem with his choice was welcome to do business elsewhere. Some board members resigned. Some investors pulled out. But others stayed, impressed by his conviction. And new opportunities emerged from unexpected places. Patricia Hawthorne tried to keep the scandal alive. But her influence waned as people grew tired of her vendetta. Derek Foster's attempt to destroy them had backfired, making him look petty and vindictive. The city's opinion slowly shifted from scandal to fascination, then to something like admiration. A billionaire who chose love over image, a woman who found her strength in honesty rather than pretense. 3 months later, they married in a small ceremony at Victor's house overlooking the bay. Grace sat in the front row, her health stabilized, her smile radiant. James Chen stood as Victor's best man, having admitted he had hoped for this outcome from the beginning. Catherine Webb, who had become something like a friend to Lily, helped arrange flowers and made sure every detail was perfect. As Lily walked toward Victor in a simple white dress, she thought about the night he had pointed at her across a ballroom. How terrified she had been, how certain that her life was ending. She had been invisible then, a shadow people look through without seeing. But Victor had seen her. And in seeing her, he had helped her see herself. When they exchanged vows, Lily's voice was steady. She promised not just to love him, but to challenge him, to see him as he truly was. To build something honest in a world of pretense. Victor's promises echoed hers, his voice carrying across the small gathering with absolute certainty as they kissed. Sealing promises that had started as performance and transformed into truth. The sun set over the bay in shades of gold and crimson. The photographer captured the moment, but no image could hold the fullness of what had passed between them. The journey from arrangement to authenticity, from survival to something that looked remarkably like joy. Later, as guests mingled and celebrated, Lily found herself on the terrace with her grandmother. Grace held her hand, studying the ring that now meant everything. "You know," Grace said softly, "I always told you that education was something no one could take away. But I was wrong about one thing." "What is that?" Lily asked. Grace smiled, her eyes bright despite her illness. "Love is something no one can take away either. Not scandal, not shame, not all the Patricia Hawthorns in the world. You found that, my darling girl. Hold on to it." Lily squeezed her grandmother's hand, watching Victor through the windows as he laughed at something James said. She thought about the woman in the cleaning uniform, invisible and afraid. She thought about the long nights of worry, the shame that had nearly crushed her. And she thought about the moment when a billionaire's eyes had found hers, across a crowded room, and seen not what she had lost, but what she had always been. A person worthy of being seen. A woman capable of transformation not through pretense, but through the courage to remain herself even when the world demanded she become someone else. The story that had started with humiliation and desperation had become something else entirely. A testament to the strange, unexpected ways people find each other, how sometimes the most authentic connections grow from the most artificial beginnings. How love, when it arrives, cares nothing for social status or past mistakes or the opinions of people who never truly mattered. As night fell over the celebration, Lily stood beside her husband, no longer playing a role but living a truth they had discovered together. The woman who had been invisible had found not just visibility, but something far more valuable. She had found herself, and in doing so, had found a love that transformed everything. The end. As Lily walked toward Victor in a simple white dress, she thought about the night he had pointed at her across a ballroom. How terrified she had been, how certain that her life was ending. She had been invisible then, a shadow people look through without seeing. But Victor had seen her. And in seeing her, he had helped her see herself. When they exchanged vows, Lily's voice was steady. She promised not just to love him, but to challenge him, to see him as he truly was. To build something honest in a world of pretense. Victor's promises echoed hers, his voice carrying across the small gathering with absolute certainty as they kissed. Sealing promises that had started as performance and transformed into truth. The sun set over the bay in shades of gold and crimson. The photographer captured the moment, but no image could hold the fullness of what had passed between them. The journey from arrangement to authenticity, from survival to something that looked remarkably like joy. Later, as guests mingled and celebrated, Lily found herself on the terrace with her grandmother. Grace held her hand, studying the ring that now meant everything. "You know," Grace said softly, "I always told you that education was something no one could take away. But I was wrong about one thing." "What is that?" Lily asked. Grace smiled, her eyes bright despite her illness. "Love is something no one can take away either. Not scandal, not shame, not all the Patricia Hawthorns in the world. You found that, my darling girl. Hold on to it." Lily squeezed her grandmother's hand, watching Victor through the windows as he laughed at something James said. She thought about the woman in the cleaning uniform, invisible and afraid. She thought about the long nights of worry, the shame that had nearly crushed her. And she thought about the moment when a billionaire's eyes had found hers, across a crowded room, and seen not what she had lost, but what she had always been. A person worthy of being seen. A woman capable of transformation not through pretense, but through the courage to remain herself even when the world demanded she become someone else. The story that had started with humiliation and desperation had become something else entirely. A testament to the strange, unexpected ways people find each other. How sometimes the most authentic connections grow from the most artificial beginnings. How love, when it arrives, cares nothing for social status or past mistakes or the opinions of people who never truly mattered. As night fell over the celebration, Lily stood beside her husband, no longer playing a role but living a truth they had discovered together. The woman who had been invisible had found not just visibility, but something far more valuable. She had found herself, and in doing so, had found a love that transformed everything. The end.